Watch this.
You want to open up opportunities for hiring more staff? Well, lower the standards. It's an approach Boise's police department is taking, a sort of reshaping of their hiring protocols to better reflect the community they serve. Now that the PACT Act is in play, what does it actually mean for Idaho's veterans in need of care? We hear from the VA, who are very much in favor of it, but not from Idaho's congressional delegation, who wasn't. We got lots of positive responses to the Minidoka anniversary story and a couple of questions, so we've got the answers. How did you answer this question as a kid? What do you want to be when you grow up? Well, to even have that ability to answer that question is kind of a luxury because it takes a lot of effort to work toward a goal like that, whatever it may be. It's also very common to not have any idea at all, depending on how old you are. Several studies have been done over the years, and some say half of college graduates don't work at all in the field that they set out to study. That's because big decisions can be made late in life, and sometimes they're life-changing decisions. And to accommodate for that, Boise Police Department is changing their standards for recruits to become an officer. It's a move they say is a win-win because, well, Boise is growing, and the department needs to keep up. Here's Andrew Bartline.
Not everyone gets to say they love what they do for a living.
This is a great profession and one that I'm extremely proud to have been a part of now for 27 years.
But recruiting the next batch of officers to share that passion hasn't been easy for the Boise Police Department.
There's a lot of challenges and a lot of competition for talented people.
Officer Tammany Brooks is the Deputy Chief of Police at BPD. He's directly involved in recruiting efforts, and right now, the Boise Police Department is short 32 officers.
That shortage is not only based on people who have retired or left the profession, but also it's signs of a growing city and recognition of the fact that Boise is one of the fastest growing cities in our nation.
In response, the Boise Police Department is lowering the educational standard to be a police officer. Previously, a candidate needed 60 college credits to be considered, the equivalent of an associate's degree. Now, an applicant only needs a high school diploma or a GED.
Our primary focus on recruiting efforts really should be here in the Treasure Valley. Providing this opportunity for those people now, I think, is just fantastic.
Instead, Boise Police is looking to provide officers with a pathway to education, rather than allowing education to be a barrier.
The training that we can provide here is just phenomenal.
John Tucker chairs the Public Safety Programs Department at the College of Western Idaho. And through a form called a Professional Learning Assessment, Boise police officers will earn college credit for completing the police academy.
We've provided the curriculum of the police academy to CWI, and they've looked at and taken the experiential learning that occurs during the police academy and correlated that to what they determined to be a sufficient amount of college units for the learning that took place during the academy.
It's the same thing if you went in and you joined our law program here and you were in that law program for 8 months, you're going to get those same credits.
Tucker's department at CWI works closely with police departments throughout the Treasure Valley.
Nampa, Caldwell, Meridian.
He says the demand for recruits is everywhere.
Looking for good quality candidates.
Boise Police believe shifting their focus will have success.
That priority should be placed on someone's content of character.
That's because the evidence is right in front of our eyes.
You know, going back to when I first started in this profession, I did not consider college, and I was actually hired as a high school dropout.
Brooks started working full-time when he was 16 years old, and the idea to become a police officer never crossed his mind until his early 20s.
It wasn't until I met my soon-to-be wife, she was a victim of road rage, and when we went to the local police department to file a report, it was there that she actually just said to me, you know, I think you would be a good police officer.
She was right, and the department Brooks started at in California only required a GED. Brooks checked all the boxes.
And so I'm fortunate that I was given that opportunity at a young age, even though growing up I didn't know this was going to be the direction that I headed.
Brooks stayed at that department for 26 years and rose to police chief. And it's that same opportunity he's looking to pass on to the next, right here in Boise.
So once they become a police officer, the growth and development shouldn't stop there. We should be continually looking to expand their horizons to help develop them not only professionally but personally as well.
And to be clear, Brooks has heavily invested in his education since becoming a police officer. He has a bachelor's and a master's degree, and lowering that standard from an AA, Brian, down to a high school diploma or a GED, it's not like they're abandoning an industry standard. I want to make that clear. If you go to any police department, it's different everywhere you go. Some want a bachelor's degree. That department he was at in California just wanted a high school diploma or a GED. It's not like there's a standard fix, and Boise is diverting away from that. They're just moving their standard down at a time where they think it's necessary.
Well, that tells me two things. Either they can't find enough people qualified to reach that standard, that AA standard, and so they have to lower it, or those that do qualify just don't want to be cops. I mean, is that kind of how things are shaping up right now?
Well, it's tough too. I mean, they have 100 candidates right now, I believe, in the pipeline who have applied, who are looking to see if they would fit. It's like a 10% success rate of people that get through. So of those 100, maybe 10 will get through.
Yeah.
So opening up that pool as
Yeah,
much as they
wider pool,
can,
yeah.
focusing on content of character, they think they're going to have success going that direction. And anecdotally, and Officer Brooks' case, that's what happened.
That's what happened for him. All right, thank you very much, Andrew. All right, after a lot of back and forth and finger pointing and claims it was something it wasn't, the PACT Act that was signed into law by President Biden, well, that happened this week. The act is to improve VA benefits for veterans who have had their health impacted by their service, exposure to toxic chemicals from Agent Orange or burn pits, stuff like that. Well, during all of this theatrical debate in Congress, some of the details and the crucial info about the PACT Act kind of got lost in the political shuffle. How will it impact those it was meant to help directly, even those who don't know they're eligible? Joe Paris visited the VA today in Boise to find out.
Idaho veterans will now have more comprehensive health care options after the passing of the PACT Act. President Biden signed it into law just this week.
Veterans need to know that this is a law that has been signed, and it will increase the emphasis and eligibility for veterans who've been exposed to toxic substances.
David Wood is the medical center director at the VA in Boise. He explains the new law expands coverage for vets that may have been exposed to dangerous chemicals in a variety of settings around the world.
So chemicals, radiation, any kind of warfare type agents used within the war. It includes exposure to harsh chemicals, etc.
The law is brand new, so it will take some time for VA operations to get everything into place and up to speed. For now, though, Wood says there are 3 big things that Idaho veterans should know. For starters, they really want veterans to enroll for health care coverage.
There's going to be assessments done of veterans for chemical exposure, and so we want them to participate in those assessments to see if they have any symptoms or any exposure that might entitle them to veterans benefits.
If veterans think they were exposed to dangerous chemicals that impacted them, they can file a claim with the VA. Care and screenings are also not a one-time thing either.
Every 5 years is basically what's written into the law. And so we don't know all the details about how those screenings are going to occur right now, but we know that it's every 5 years. And I assume it'll be some questions, it may be some blood tests, or some additional types of clinical screening.
The new resources will not cost veterans.
This won't cost the veterans anything. Basically, it is an expansion of care, so it is something that we owe veterans because of their service and because they were potentially exposed to these chemicals when they were in service of their country. And so there is a cost, but not to the veterans.
So what veterans are eligible?
Vietnam, Persian Gulf, and anybody post 9/11 is who are covered. This will really open the door to educating not only veterans, but also our providers here, so that they can do these exams, so they can recognize these kinds of exposures. And primarily it would be things like respiratory illnesses, cancers, those kinds of illnesses.
Investments made in the PACT Act are also designed to help improve care deep into the future.
Part of the funding for this law will be dedicated to research and researching different health conditions that are associated with exposure to these toxic substances, and how we can better treat and really identify the impact of these exposures. The feeling is that this is a good thing for veterans, that veterans will benefit from this. that it will be for many veterans, something that they've been asking for a very long time.
And to be completely honest, there are a lot of questions right now about how all of this is going to work out, the intricacies, and specifically like how will the screenings and care work. If you are a veteran looking for more details on this, I'm going to link a really helpful VA explainer right in the story at ktvb.com. It'll be in blue. You just click right on it. But there's a lot of conversation about the fight over the act. But the bottom line here, Brian, is that veterans now have more services and expanded care options. You and I were talking during the story. These are men and women that went overseas. They went around the world, literally putting their life on the line. Now they're getting the medical care that so many of them had been begging for years. So this is a really big moment, and they're really encouraging people, even if you've been, I guess, disenchanted with the VA for any reason, reach out to them, apply for care, because they want to help Americans, especially Americans who served our country.
I know we talked about this when it actually passed, but just to reiterate, all 4 of Idaho's congressional delegation, who get some pretty good health care serving in Congress, voted no on this bill. So, all right, thank you very much, Joe. Well, since replenishing the Constitutional Defense Fund this past legislative session, Idaho could soon see another major withdrawal of cash in the coming weeks because, well, probably coming months. Because back in June, a federal judge ordered the state to pay more than $321,000 in legal fees after losing yet another lawsuit over an anti-transgender bill. This is the one that was signed into law by Governor Little back in 2020, which would have made it illegal for transgender people to change the sex marker on their birth certificates. Well, that June in 2020, a judge ruled in favor of the lawsuit, agreeing the law violated another court order from 2018. Therefore, the 2020 law would be unenforceable. This story was first reported by Ruth Brown of Idaho's Public Television's Idaho Reports. But we received the letter sent from the Attorney General's office to the Board of Examiners, who decides who gets paid and when, basically. Well, they said they need to pay the plaintiffs. They actually asked for more than $447,000, the plaintiffs did, but the judge only awarded them the $321,000, plus interest to pay for attorney fees and other costs. And so this is where the layers of government come into play. On Tuesday, a subcommittee approved that recommendation to make the payment, but now it has to be reviewed by the entire board next week, a board that consists of the governor, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the state controller. It doesn't mean they will just cut a check, though, because according to the state controller's office, it then has to be decided by the legislature how that money will be paid, either through a supplemental budget request or through the Constitutional Defense Fund. And that won't happen until next year when the legislature convenes. So the wheels just keep turning slowly. But since its inception in 1995, the Constitutional Defense Fund has paid well over $3 million to cover the cost of Idaho passing questionable laws. We combed through all of your responses after yesterday's story on the Minidoka incarceration camp, but it's the questions that we're addressing today. If you have questions, whether it's about Minidoka or pretty much anything else, and you saw it on this show, let us know about it. Send us a text to the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. We'll take questions about anything, even if you didn't see it on this show. And as always, be sure to include your name and the hashtag #the208. If we don't have an answer for you today, well, stick around. We may have it on another show, like maybe tomorrow.
This place has a certain power to it. It's like a place of great trauma and pain, and it's also a place of healing.
I don't think as a country we've fully grappled with it. I know as a community we're not done grappling with it.
Minidoka will always be a community-centered historic site.
It's about remembering this, not forgetting, and just saying never again.
Our story on the 80th anniversary of the opening of the Minidoka incarceration camp prompted a lot of positive responses yesterday, but it also prompted a question from Tim, who asked, was there a cemetery at the Minidoka camp? If so, did relatives have them moved to be closer to them at government expense? Tim hopes so. Well, Tim, yes, there was a cemetery at Minidoka, but apparently it was located outside the barbed wire fence. According to this map from 1945, there was a road on the western edge leading to it. And according to records, 193 incarcerees passed away between 1942 and 1945. Being held prisoner in their own country did not keep families from celebrating the lost lives with funerals, as traditionally as they could in such a non-traditional place. As for the second part of your question, Tim, whether those buried at Minidoka were sent home with their families at government expense, well, we asked that question of Kurt Ikeda, the Director of Education and Interpretation at the National Historic Site, and he told us, well, the answer isn't perfectly clear. He told us every once in a while the local legend about bodies being left behind from those 3 years, well, they're still occupying farmland outside Block 1 there. He assured us, though, that is definitely not the case. There are no bodies left out there under some farmland. However, Kurt did say records weren't very well kept in Jerome County from that era, so despite their attempts to find out, they aren't completely sure of all the names of the 193 who were buried there, or where they went when the incarceration camp was closed in 1945. They do know some who were incarcerated without families and who died there. They were reinterred at local cemeteries. But again, they aren't 100% sure who that may have been. So who paid for removing them and then returning them home? Likely the government, Kurt says. But again, records for that are even scarce. Kurt does know when families were allowed to leave beginning in January of 1945, they were given $25 and a train ticket. And that's it. Likely not enough to pay to transport a deceased family member back home.
Let me bring you up to date on some of these thunderstorms that are moving through the valley right now, and some of you may have been affected by some of these storms already. They're originating down here by the Nevada border, but they're still coming up through the Waihee County. They made it into Canyon County, Pigette County. Right now we've got one in southern Ada County. If you take a look at this storm, particularly right through here, you'll see it coming up, and it moved through Caldwell. It had some lightning strikes through there, but what's still left is a severe thunderstorm warning for this storm system that is up around the New Plymouth area. It's just about ready to move through New Plymouth. It's up until 5:30 tonight. It's going to be extended likely as that continues to move northward for more northern territory that's north of New Plymouth. Now let's talk about this other storm system that's coming up from the southwest. We'll take a little wider shot here. You can see here's Caldwell, here's Boise over here, then down here toward Melba. You can see the thunderstorm with many lightning strikes right through here. Let's get a little closer shot of that. This is the one. This is another severe thunderstorm warning that is basically out for Ada County as well as southern Canyon County. This one's going to be in effect for 6 o'clock this evening. All of these storms have quarter-size hail as well as gusty winds that could get up to 50, maybe even 60 miles an hour, just to alert you of what could take place. More will likely develop for this evening, but we still have the two, the one toward New Plymouth and the one out here toward Murphy that's moving toward the Boise area to the northeast, likely could move up within the next half hour or so. But more storms that happen to be to the southwest, and we'll keep you updated for this evening.
All right, more storms and more hot weather heading our way. Yeah, possibly record-breaking days coming up next week. You know, we're already up to 17 days this year of triple-digit temperatures, which is well above the average 9 that we see during the summer. One more day and we will tie for the second most ever 100-degree days. Ever. That's a lot of hot. You know what else is hot? A sizzling tour around the Gem State.
Hot girl summer? Heck, it's a hot season for everyone, especially in Orofino, one of the hottest places in Idaho during July and August. Being by the Clearwater River didn't prevent the preheating of the Orofino oven back in 1934. 118 degrees on July 28th, the hottest Gem State temperature ever recorded. You'd think that title would belong to places like Hell's Canyon or Hell Roaring Creek, which leads to Hell Roaring Lake in Idaho's Sawtooths. What about Warm Lake, a cool camping spot in Valley County you'd think would be connected to Warm River? It's not. Warm River, way over in Fremont County, is a hot spot for fly fishing, but it's also Idaho's smallest city. Population 3, today's high 84. It takes a heck of a lot of heat to turn ore into metal, which is what used to happen in Shoshone County's Smelterville. What it takes to smelt it, not nearly as hot as what dealt it, and still does. There's an ancient underground volcano which warms the water that gives Lava Hot Springs its name. But perhaps the figurative, feverish places of Idaho aren't your forte. You could always step into the Shoshone Ice Caves or chill out in the Custer County community of Chile, and then stop over in Stanley, considered the coldest climate in the lower 48, based on average temperatures. Oh sure, Stanley should hit 90 this week, but those days of triple digits don't happen.
All right, now that the PACT Act has passed, and we talked about the benefits that some veterans will be getting through their VA hospital, well, a lot of people still upset that our delegation voted no on this act, including Steve. I wonder how many of Idaho's military vets will still blindly vote for Idaho's GOP politicians who obviously don't support the good health care of vets related to their service and sacrifices in the past, which then leads to Joe in Mountain Home saying, so our delegates voted no on the PACT Act. Why don't you tell us why? Was it because of other garbage in the bill? Well, that's a very good question. This kind of comes down to, they sent out a joint statement, at least Senators Crapo and Risch sent out a joint statement, and they said, basically, they wanted to vote yes on it, but couldn't because of what they called a $400 billion hole in the discretionary budget that, according to them, allows Democrats to use to add spending, quote, totally unrelated to veterans. So that's why they voted against it. 320-some thousand, $3 million plus spent on frivolous bills. I'm sure our state attorney general has prompted our legislators not to go that direction. Help me here with the lack of common sense. Taxpayers just keep on paying, says Mitch. Were any reparations ever paid to those who were placed in the incarceration camps, asks Jack in Boise. Yes. In fact, in 1988, the Civil Liberties Act was signed by President Reagan, and they spread about $1.6 billion among the 82,000 or so that were still around at that point. So yes, there were reparations. We'll see you tomorrow.